Today's part 3 of a series called Defiant Joy. And today's thesis is this, and we'll talk about it. Defiant joy gracefully receives what it cannot grasp. Defiant joy gracefully receives what it cannot grasp. Can I ask you to participate in this for a moment? You can do it silently, you can write this down, you can share it with a neighbor if you want. Can you name 3 things you're trying to control that would have been absurd 100 years ago? 3 things you're trying to control, to hold on to, that would have been absurd 100 years ago. These can be funny things, and then I would love for one of those things to be real. Can I give you a little time to write those down or to share it with somebody around you? 3 things you're trying to control that would have been absurd 100 years ago. I see a bunch of confused faces. Some of you are participating. Let me give you some of mine. It is exactly 70 degrees in this room right now. Can you imagine 100 years ago, somebody trying to control the temperature in a room quite like this? But not only am I trying to control the thermostat and the temperature in every room that I'm in, that now I can even do it remotely. There's an app for that. It's like, I not only want to control the room that I'm not in, I want to do it from 1,000 miles away too. That would have just been absurd 100 years ago. Second one, cruise control. Some of you are like, yeah, I get it. No, I'm talking about cruise control on a wave runner. I was teaching my nephew to wakeboard behind a wave runner, and I was like, this is really hard to keep it steady. Oh, here's a cruise control button on a wave runner. Can you imagine trying to tell someone 100 years ago what a wave runner was? Just like a jet ski? It's like, okay. It's absurd. Y'all aren't with me. All right, coffee temperature. Coffee temperature. The last birthday gift me and the kids got for Kelsey was one of those Ember coffee cups. I'm not talking about coffee temperature like while you're making it. I'm talking about coffee temperature 3 hours after you pour it. Down to the degree. And if you didn't know, this is available. This is available. You can order an Ember cup. Isn't it weird? Here's the reality for me. I can probably name 3,000 of these things that are just absurd 100 years ago. If you were to ask my great-grandparents about half the things I do in my daily life, they would be like, say what now? But it's like, it just was a different world because of the advances that it's almost like every advance makes it seem like control is more and more possible. So here's what I'm learning about myself. I don't just want convenience. I want control. And I don't just want happiness. I want guarantees. So grasping and controlling just seems more and more part of my expectations for life. And I think that's because we live in a culture of control. We live in a culture of control. There's this European sociologist. His name is Hartmut Rosa. He's done a lot of work on modern control, and here's what he says. He says the driving cultural force of that form of life that we call modern is the idea, the hope and the desire that we can make the world controllable. He says, this is the essence of the modern world, controllability. He says, modernity's incessant desire is to make the world engineerable, predictable, available, accessible, disposable in all its aspects. The history of our modern relationship to the world is a history of conquering and dominating the night with electric light, the sky with airplanes, the sea with ships, the body with medicine, and you could go on and on with this list, right? It's like every area of industry is trying to do this one thing: control. Control, control, control. And so control, I think, is no longer extraordinary, it's expected. We expect to be able to control. If you came in today and it was 76 degrees, I would hear about it from 25 people. We expect it. We expect it not only in terms of the temperature, but we expect it all the way down to the deepest parts of our lives. I think sometimes in this, everything is controlled. It's got to be controlled. It plays out like this. Either what's happening is my plan or it was a mistake. So there's no other it's just either or. There's no middle ground here. It's either a plan or a mistake. It's either success or someone's fault. And then it's either happiness or despair. Here's what I mean by happy or despair. This is Rosa. He says, precisely because of our expectation of control, life always seems to elude us. This in turn leads to anxiety, frustration, anger, and even despair. In other words, the more we can control, the more frustrated we get by the uncontrollable. We think it shouldn't be this way. I should be able to control that too. Everything, I can control it. And the more that you can control, and we can control a whole lot more than we could 100 years ago. We can control a whole lot more than we could 10 years ago. But then the more that you can control, the more aware you are of how out of control the world is. And yet it just leads to this frustration and despair. But I think very often we go through these seasons of life where we may have the expectation of control, but then the veil of control totally disappears and is pulled back. There's a story that I've talked about this woman several times in this series because she often writes on joy. Her name is Kate Bowler. She's a historian at Duke Divinity School. And she's a mom of a couple of kids, and she's in her mid-30s. And then out of the blue, Kate is diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And she wrote a really wonderful book called Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved. And she says, control is a drug and we're all hooked. She says when she got diagnosed with cancer, you could tell that it wasn't just her. She was trying to control everything, but it was everybody around her was also trying to control. Here's what she says. She says, I can barely admit to myself that I have almost no choice but to surrender. But neither can those around me. I can hear it in my sister-in-law's voice as she tells me to keep fighting. I can see it in my academic friends. When did the symptoms start? They ask. Is this hereditary? Buried in all their concern is the unspoken question, do I have any control? She says, for her, the veil was just torn back. She's like, actually, no, this is not hereditary. No, I don't have any pre-existing. This is not something that I could have controlled. It's not something that you can control. The veil of control is just torn back. Which then, in these moments, these seasons, it just begs this question. What if life isn't meant to be grasped? What if it's beyond control? This is what the text of Ecclesiastes is all about. Could I invite you to just lock in to what happens when I blow out these candles? Ecclesiastes begins like this. The words of the teacher, in Hebrew, Kohelet. It's somebody who preaches, who teaches, who gathers. He's the son of David, the king in Jerusalem. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. He keeps using this word over and over, 38 times in this short book. It would take you 20 minutes to read it. Hevel, 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 hevel. Absurd, 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 absurd. Vanity, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. One scholar says that Ecclesiastes is like the published findings of the man who tried everything. And so at the beginning of this story in Ecclesiastes, there's this really powerful person who has everything accessible to him. He's rich and powerful. He has all this leisure and time. And so he goes on a quest. They call him Kohelet. Kohelet goes on a quest to find happiness, and he searches everywhere for it. He says, I, the teacher, was king over Jerusalem. I applied my mind to study and to explore by wisdom all that is done under the heavens. He says, I went after everything. I've seen all the things that are done under the sun, and all of them are hevel. They're absurd. They're vanity. They're meaningless. They are a chasing after the wind. They're grasping for what you want to possess it, but it just passes through it. And so this is his published report on absurdity, the quest for happiness in the middle of everything. But this word hevel, I think, is where we have to start. For Kohelet, the teacher, the preacher, he just says everything is hevel, 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 38 times. In 12 chapters, he uses it 38 times. He'll explore something. He'll talk about pleasure. He'll talk about marriage. He'll talk about work. He'll talk about wealth. He'll talk about wisdom. He'll talk about education. He'll talk about food and drink and like, travel and all the things that you can do. And he'll just say, oh, that's also hevel. That's also hevel. That's also hevel. And so one scholar says, the problem is that the book's most important word is also the most difficult to translate. But at its essence, hevel is the word smoke. It's smoke. It's this vapor. It's this air. It's meant to say it's meaningless. It's pointless. It's futile. It's enigmatic. It's hot air. It's absurd. And so, depending on your translation, you may have the New King James where it's like vanity of vanities. You may have the NIV that says it's meaningless. You may have another one that says it's absurd. You may have the Message that says it's precarious. It's like, yes, all of this, but at its heart, it's that symbol of smoke. It's smoke that, oh, there it is. Let me just grab it. Where did it go? One time I was teaching Ecclesiastes and had a competition to see who could grab the most, and then we awarded a winner. Neither one won. You cannot, that's the whole idea. It's striving after the win. You cannot hold onto hevel. It's absurd. It's too much. Can you say the word hevel? Hevel, 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 hevel. Everything is hevel. He says your marriage is hevel. Your kids are hevel. Your wealth is hevel. Your inheritance is hevel. Your education, your degrees, they're hevel. Your job, your paycheck, all of it's hevel. There's no exception. Everything is hevel. Everything is smoke. It's all like this. Human life is hevel, since like a breath, it quickly disappears. A new car is hevel, since the moment you drive it off the lot, it starts losing value. Beauty is hevel, since age never subtracts wrinkles. It only adds them. Ecclesiastes uses hevel in all these senses and so many more. And so he says life is hevel because, in a sense, far more fundamental than you want to admit, life is uncontrollable. This is actually a really extraordinary book. It's called Everything is Never Enough, Ecclesiastes' Surprising Path to Resilient Happiness. But instead of happiness, where he starts is hevel, and the central idea is that life cannot be grasped. It cannot be grasped with your head, because he says it's absurd. Life, when you live your life, and by the end of your life, you will look back on your life and you will say, none of it makes sense. There's nothing predictable. It's not entirely reasonable. It's not entirely logical. Life doesn't give you all the answers. No, life with God is better than life with answers. And that's one of his main ideas here. But he says you cannot grasp it. And if you try, it's hevel. He says, I've tried it. There's no end to it. You will not find the resolution. Not only can you not grasp it with your head, you cannot grasp it with your hands. You cannot hold on to it. It's chasing after the wind. It's striving after the wind. It's trying to hold on to smoke and then say, here it is. Let me give it to you. This is what it feels like whenever you're just like soaking up your kids. Fletcher bought himself a brand new electric guitar this week. It's his first electric. And I'm hearing so much Seven Nation Army. I'm soaking it up. Last night I'm like in my room studying, praying, and I just hear dun 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 dun, just over and over. But it's not like I can push pause on it though, and just say like, stay like this. It's fleeting. There are these seasons of my life and of ministry that sometimes they're extraordinary. I remember after we planted Oikos Church, I went back to our Onward Church Planters retreat, and I was just describing it. I was like, it's like the honeymoon year. And I remember talking to some of the other planters and ministers, and they were like, honeymoon. They're like, that sounds wonderful. That just doesn't sound like where I'm at. It was like that the concept was just in some ways so naive to them because they had been around it for a while. And then by year 3, it was like, oh, sometimes ministry can be brutal. It's fleeting. It changes. Even it's almost like the happiest moments are the hardest to hold on to. And so this idea that if I can just control it, maybe financially I can control it, or maybe if I just go get another degree, then I can control it. Maybe if I go to get another job or another house, or like it's just this quest to hold on, to grasp, and to control that we're all doing. And then sometimes, like the sheet is pulled back, and it's like, oh, the veil of control is actually not here. The happiest moments are the hardest to hold on to. The whole idea of Ecclesiastes is that you can't do the thing that you're trying to do. So is there another way to go about life? One of the metaphors that Jameson uses in that book, Everything is Never Enough, he says Ecclesiastes is like a 2 or 3 story building. He says most of Ecclesiastes is spent on the first floor, the ground level. I went to Topgolf in Memphis for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and we went to the ground floor, and we had a great time. But last week I went with a youth group, and we got on the upper deck, and I realized that's even cooler. It's like, this is where you want to be. So just picture that, like ground floor is where you're just kind of walking around observing. And this is, like Jameson, he says he's basically like a stand-up comic. He's just making observational humor and absurdity about these things. And at the ground level, he says everything is hevel. If you just look around life, it's all hevel, hevel, hevel. It's meaningless. It's absurd. What's the point here? And he says, really, the primary lens that he's seen everything through is Genesis 3 and 4. Now, hevel is the word that Ecclesiastes uses 38 times. But did you know the first time the word hevel is used? This is a really interesting Bible trivia. There's a man named Adam and a woman named Eve, and they have 2 sons. Their names are Cain and Hevel. Hevel. He's here for a moment and then gone. It's absurd, meaningless. You want to hold on to life. You want to hold on to your kids. You want to hold on to God's promises that a child of Adam is going to lead into the victory of the world. And then it's Hevel. It's Hevel. So it's this world of sin, in a world of death, in a world of curse. It's a world of Hevel. And so everywhere Kohelet looks, the teacher walks around in his quest for happiness. He says, it's not here. It's not here. It's not here. It's not here. Everything is touched by the fall. And there's no exception. And if you think that you have found something in this life that has not been touched by the fall, you will be disappointed by the end. It too is Hevel. Everything is Hevel. The ground floor is Hevel. And so when Skeller calls him the ultimate buzzkill, it's like, I thought this was a series on joy. It's like, what are you talking about happiness? And so there's this really strange turn that happens in the book of Ecclesiastes. As you read all 12 chapters, he just keeps coming back to this. I went here and I looked in this thing and it was Hevel, and I looked at this thing and it was Hevel too. And so he's the ultimate buzzkill. And yet the central premise of this book is actually about joy and happiness. This is James Lindbergh. He says, it's true that Hevel sounds throughout the book like a pedal on an organ. But while important, the pedal point is never the main focus of the musical composition, over against the pedal point. In full awareness of it, there is a melody. Perhaps a sturdy chorale, maybe even an exciting, even joyful counterpart. And I suggest that this counterpart, the joy theme in Ecclesiastes, is really what it's all about. This book about Hevel is actually about joy. It's all about it. This is Jameson. He says at several points in the book, 7 to be precise, Kohelet climbs up to find a set of stairs to the second story. From up here, he surveys the same territory, considering many of the same subjects: work, wealth, food, drink, and he pronounces them good. There's nothing better, he says in these 7 passages. Kohelet surveys the same territory, but sees something astonishingly different. He sees the same subjects, yet comes to the opposite conclusion. And so here on the second floor, he says that everything is a gift. Ground level, Hevel. hevel. Second floor. Gift, 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 gift. Seven times. He explores the gift in the midst of a world that is fallen. I want to show you these 7. This is Ecclesiastes 2. What I want to do is walk through these fairly quickly and just kind of piece together what is special about this second floor. How do we get off the ground level and look at the same stuff of life that could be despairing and depressing and absurd? And how do we get to a place where you can actually say, this is happiness and joy? This is anti-anxiety medicine. He says a person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their toil. This past week, I was studying Ecclesiastes 2 with a really wonderful book in front of me. I had a meeting canceled, and so I had a fresh cup of coffee, a really wonderful book, and it is a downpour outside. I'm sitting right next to a window, and I just think, there's nothing better than this. A person can do nothing better. Can you say the phrase, nothing better? We're going to come back to this a lot. I would love for this to be a catchphrase of yours, where you just look around, you just soak it up, and you just say, there's nothing better. Nothing better. There's nothing better, he says, than to eat and drink and find satisfaction, not from their toil, not in your paycheck, in their toil. This too, I see, it's from the hand of God. For without him, who can eat and find enjoyment? Do you see that language of rejoicing, of joy? There's satisfaction, there's joy in these things. How? Because they come from the hand of God, he says. And so to the person who pleases him, do you see this word? God gives. God gives. They come from God. God gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. Here's the second one. He says in chapter 3, verse 12, I know that you see it? Say it with me. There's nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. There's nothing better than to just find joy in the gifts that God gives you. A little later in chapter 3, he says it like this, 3:22. So I saw that there's nothing better for a person than to enjoy their work, because that is their lot. You know the language of lot? Like the inheritance that was passed on and given to the children of Israel. It's like this tribe gets this one, this tribe gets that one, this tribe gets this one on the other side of the river, this tribe gets this one with the mountains, this tribe gets this one with all the Canaanites. You're going to have to do something about them. You know what they didn't do? They didn't say, why did I get this lot? They just said, amazing. Look at the lot God has given us. Levites, sorry guys, you didn't get a lot. And they say, no worries. You are our lot. You are our portion. So your lot is this boundary, limited, kind of what has been given to you. And he'll talk about your work. He'll talk about your wife. He'll talk about your friends. He'll talk about your money as these things that are just, this is my lot. There's this uncontrollability to this idea. It's just received rather than grasped. He says, for who can bring them to see what will happen after them? All right, here's the big one. So we've seen there's nothing better. He says, enjoy it. He says, this is a gift. He says, this is your lot. And actually, we start to see in chapter 5, this kind of hinge in the middle of the book. Many scholars say that this is the central one. And so if you're a note taker, if you're somebody who writes in your Bible, 5:18 through 20 is really the heart of Ecclesiastes. And he says, this is what I have observed to be good, that it is appropriate for a person to eat, to drink, and to find satisfaction in their toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life that God has given them. You see, God has given, for that is their lot. You see, all three ideas. Enjoy it. Enjoyment is commended and commanded all across Ecclesiastes. Enjoy it. Be happy. Find satisfaction. But then he says, why? Because God is a giver. It has come from God. He's the giver of every good gift. He is a good father who gives good gifts to his children. And so he says, if I'm getting it from God, and I am, There's no I look around on the ground floor and it's just hevel, 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 but I step up on this floor and I see God there. And if I'm seeing God there, then I'm going to receive this as a gift. For this is my lot. It's not something I have to control, it's something I get to receive. And so Derek Kidner, who's probably becoming one of my favorite Old Testament scholars. Y'all may be noticing that I quote him in just about every sermon now. I love Kidner. He says, at first sight, this may look like the mere praise of simplicity and moderation. But in fact, the key word is God. And the secret of life held out to us is openness to Him. It's a readiness to take what comes to us as heaven sent, whether it is toil or wealth or both. And so he says, God is the one. Look at this. God keeps showing up in this passage. Moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possessions and the ability to enjoy them, to accept their lot and be happy in their toil, these are all gifts of God. He gives us our lots. He gives us the capacity to accept them. He gives us the capacity to enjoy them. He says, this is a gift. It's a gift of God. And so they seldom reflect on their days of their life because God keeps them occupied with gladness of heart. He says some people never realize how good they have it because God just fills them up with so many good things. This is a gift of God too. And so at this point, we can imagine the teacher pausing and calling for a chorus of the gospel song. I've got the joy, joy, joy down in my heart. I wasn't expecting this in this like Lutheran commentary on the book of Ecclesiastes. I was like, oh, yeah, yes. But I'll just tell you, that's not how I go through my days, singing, I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. Luther, 500 years ago, he says this statement, this 5:18 through 20, this is the interpreter of the entire book. Solomon intends to forbid anxieties so that we may happily enjoy the things that are present and not care at all about the things that are in the future, lest we permit the present moment, our moment, to slip away. You see, he says that the central idea of Ecclesiastes is to find joy in the present, in the gift of God. There's three pieces that we see when it comes to these nothing better passages. The first one is this commendation and commandment to enjoy it. Find satisfaction, be happy. The second thing that we see is this call to recognize this is a gift of God, that what you receive, there's actually someone on the other side. And this is the difference between the ground floor and the second floor, because the second floor is able to see the God who gives it on the other side. Everything is not, hevel is not all there is. Everything is hevel, but that's not all there is, because there's also a good giver of those things. The gifts that God gives aren't meant to be held onto, they're just meant to be received. The good gifts, smoke as they are, can be received. I know I'm skipping some good stuff here. The third piece of this nothing better mentality is your lot. And this is like, it's not just bad luck. My kids were arguing the other day on if there's such a thing as luck, if there's such a thing as fortune. They were sort of looking for the right word, and I think the word is providence. And I love that wasn't like a conversation Kelsey and I were leading. That was a conversation Annie was leading. She was like, if I believed in luck, I might call you lucky. I was like, what does that even mean? But there actually is there's just gift. When God is sovereign, when God is ruling, this is the awareness of Kohelet. He says, like, on the second floor, God gives me everything that I have, and what I have came from His hand. And I'm grateful to God for the gifts that I have received. So enjoy God's gift and enjoy your life. And so Jameson says the key to the whole book is understanding why the second floor is different from the first floor, why the second floor is different from the ground level. And he says the key difference between the first floor and the second floor is that on the second floor, Kohelet brings God to bear. Specifically, he considers all of life through the lens of its being created by God and sustained by God. He says to say that life is a gift is not a vague, wishful metaphor, but the strict and sober truth. Because life comes from God's hand, and all the good things in life do too, both life itself and its million small good things are gifts. And so on the ground floor, you have this empirical observation. He's just walking around saying, hevel, 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 hevel. And he's totally right. We live in a sinful, fallen world where everything is cursed and broken. Everything is cursed and broken. But on the second floor, it moves beyond empirical observation to a confessional observation. He's not just looking around. He's now saying, I can see beyond what he calls under the sun. There's someone who lives on the other side who made the sun. And so I'm calling this confessional observation. He steps into the world, not in a Genesis 3 and 4 world, but in a Genesis 1 and 2 world. And he says, there is a good God who made this world. And what he made is called good. It is good. It is good. Is it broken? Yes, it's hevel. Every part of it is hevel. And it is good. And so the last three is, so I commend the enjoyment of life, because there's nothing better for a person under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. Then joy will accompany them in their toil all the days of their life that God has given them under the sun. Chapter 9, verse 7, he says, go eat your food with gladness, drink your wine with a joyful heart, for God has already approved what you do. Always be clothed in white, always anoint your head with oil, enjoy life with your wife, the one that you love, all the days of this meaningless life that God has given to you under the sun. I love how he frames marriage. He's like, it's as good as it gets. There's nothing better of your meaningless life, for this is your lot in life and your toilsome labor under the sun. It is hevel and it is gift at the same time. This is chapter 11, the final one, the seventh one. He says, however many years anyone may live, let them enjoy them all. He talks about old people, senior citizens. He says, I got some words for you on enjoying life. He says, young people, don't despise your Creator in the days of your youth. Enjoy life in your youth. Like, yes, there's hevel all around you, but let them remember the days of darkness, for there will be many. Everything to come is hevel. It's meaningless. It's absurd. All is hevel. All is gift at the same time. But I think what we see is that defiant joy gracefully receives what it cannot grasp. And so I think in that receiving of gift and lot and of enjoying, our grip can actually lessen on all the things that are they're causing our anxieties, undermining our happiness, and really like poking a hole in the water that's draining out of our energy levels. Defiant joy gracefully, because it has eyes that it's God. This is a Genesis 1 and 2 world and a Genesis 3 and 4 world at the same time. There is a God who loves me, who gives good gifts, and he has given me these gifts. I want to gracefully recognize his grace, and I want to receive, not take, because it can't be taken anyway. Smoke cannot be held on to. And so how can you receive what you cannot grasp? I've got three quick things, and then we'll be done. These are practices that I think might be helpful. And if they're not helpful to you, can you adapt them to some other way of just gracefully receiving what you cannot grasp, of reminding your heart that you don't have to grasp? And the desire for control is actually a futile one anyway, an exhausting, happiness undermining, futile path. So how can we do this? Number one, open your hands. Can you just literally open your hands, open your fingers? Now, metaphorically, what does this mean? It means open your hands, like open yourself. Stop grasping for guarantees. In our family, we have family values, and in the Dad Challenge, we're working on these family values this week. We have this family value of risk. Like we want our kids to embrace risk. Don't take the easy way. Don't take the way without cost. Go for it. Risk and courage help us in our family to live brave. This is how we talk about it. But if you're grasping for guarantees all the time, and I grasp for guarantees, I'm trying to hold on to. And so open your hands, literally, and trust. Did you know that the opposite of grasping isn't chaos? It's trust. Number two, open your eyes. Wake up to the nothing better moments of today. Luther says, like, this is what Ecclesiastes is actually saying. The central text, 5:18 through 20, is meant to frame the whole book of Ecclesiastes. And he says, you're on the ground floor. He says, but you have access to the second floor at any moment that you can draw your consciousness to the Lord Almighty, who gives you good gifts, to his grace that is abundant, to his sovereignty that gives you your lot. And so that allows you to wake up to the nothing better moments of today. Can I ask you to just take a second and just name a nothing better moment from either today or yesterday? A moment where you're just like, wow, struck by gratitude. Can I give you a few seconds to share it with somebody around you? Mm, mm. So, so, all right, number 3, open your mouth. And you're doing it. This is exactly what you need to do. Give thanks, not only an awareness of what's going on, but give it to the giver of every good gift. Just these moments where you're just struck by awe, where you just soak in the smallest of gifts and you say, there's nothing better, God. Thank you that this is my lot. Thank you that you give me good gifts. And those good gifts cannot be held onto. They will be lost. They will change. It will be a new season with new gifts and new losses. And so in the moment of today, give thanks to the giver of every good gift. Been thinking about what would it look like to be a church that has the aroma of grace, where we just walk in to each other's homes or into our Sunday gathering, and we just have just constant nothing better moments where you're just struck by the goodness of God, not least when we sing the goodness of God, like this morning. And man, it's hard to get through the goodness of God without tears in your eyes, because it just helps us to remember and to see. What would it look like to be a family, maybe a son or a daughter, a husband or a wife, uh, in the church, a brother or a sister who's just so filled up with the aroma of grace? This is a nothing better moment happening. You guys know I love campfires. Some of you know that. Um, if it's fall or spring and we're anywhere close, I may show up to work and I just smell like I've just been smoked out by firewood. I love it. It's like where I want to be is so close to the fire, just at peace, slow, that by being near that fire, it's not that I carry the smoke with me, but somehow the aroma of the fire goes with me. I think this is a picture of the aroma of grace that I want to be in my life. That in the middle of a heavy world, I can be so close to the flame of God, His grace, His goodness, and I can just slow and peacefully soak Him in, so that then when I go off to work, or go on a walk with my wife, or put the kids down, or go play in the park, I will smell like the gratitude, like I've been there. Not in a way that I can hold on to it. Who can hold on to smoke? But who can avoid it when you spend that much time near the fire? That's who I want to be. Isn't that who you want to be? Soaked in the aroma of grace. Lord, would you make our church soaked in the aroma of your grace? And we know that it's not us. It is you are the flame, you are the fire. Christ Jesus, you are the aroma. And under the aroma of Christ, would you change us? Not in ways where we believe the lie, the myth that we can hold on to it, that we can grasp it, that we can control it. But God, would you let us open our hands and by being near you, the giver, by receiving our lot as from your hands, to find a defiant joy, a capacity to receive, a contentment that's resilient. Can you make us into people who are soaked in the smoke of the aroma of your grace? God, would you loosen our grip in a world where we just want to control everything? Would you teach us to accept? In a world where we grasp, would you teach us to receive? In a world where we complain, would you teach us to say thank you? It's our prayer in the name of Christ our King. Amen.